This past 6 months or so, I've had a chance to hold 18 conversations with different parts of our constituency across the region and territory as part of our strategic planning process. And structured those conversations loosely around 5 different questions, and then posted those questions also on the web. We had more than 250 people in attendance at those 18 conversations, and another 200 people wrote in replies and responses online. And so we feel like we really enjoyed and had the benefit of some deep and helpful conversation with the people who care about the school as we begin to think about how to fashion a way forward. And I thought I'd just organize a few remarks around a couple of the things I heard most clearly from those conversations. I wrote a little bit about that in our most recent PS portions, but wanted to share a little more detail about that. There were regularly 2 concerns that were identified and 2 hopes for the school that came through very clearly, and I'll start with the concerns. The first was about the financial health of the school, and people asked that with deep concern and a desire to help where they could. And I think it's really important for us to be clear on the challenges in front of us, which are significant. We have run deficits, operating deficits, for a number of years as we have tried to keep education affordable for our students, make the improvements that we needed to, create the kind of learning center that is state-of-the-art and we're so proud of. And yet, because of those deficits, we've moved through most of the reserves that we have and now are at a place where we need to move to fiscal sustainability in the very near future. We're tremendously fortunate to be the recipients of a significant bequest. You might have seen the news that we sent out from the Helen Palmer estate of a little over $7 million, and that has strengthened our endowment significantly, and that will allow us over the next couple of years to do 2 things that are critical for us to move forward. One is to keep a number of important commitments that we've made, to finish the connector, the atrium between the Learning Center and the library and make the library handicap accessible, to complete the repairs that you've seen just beginning on the chapel tower, and to keep some other commitments. The other thing it allows us to do is it gives us some time to move to sustainability. You can't overcome a $1 million or $2 million deficit on a $7 million budget in a year, but we hope that we can do that in the next 3 or 4 years. And we're trying to do that in a couple of ways. I'll just outline that very briefly. One, we are continuing to try to be extremely cost conscious in the budget. The budget a few years ago was as high as $11 million, and when I came in, it had already been reduced to $7.5 million, which is a really significant shift in a relatively short time. This year's budget is $400,000 more to the good. It's a conservative budget, but we continue to move in the right direction. We're also trying to generate new revenues through different programs and new programs through the co-op experiment that has started and been received well through the MAPLE program. We're hoping to launch a tract and cohort Doctor of Ministry program in biblical preaching. And we are preparing to launch a distributed learning MDiv starting the fall of 2016. And the research we've done across ATS schools suggests that these are each important ways to increase the enrollment in our typical degree program. We're also trying to strengthen our lifelong learning and to come alongside leaders and congregations as a resource and a trusted partner. Last year we had the chance to have a ministry resource day in December where we had a couple of lectures and workshops, invited anyone who was interested to come for the day and for free. We're going to do that again this September, Thursday the 17th. We also are renewing preaching days, which often fell in the summer months, but are going to fall now in the fall, the 3rd week of October, with 2 of my colleagues here, Karen Weissman and Wayne Croft. Tom Long will also be here, and we are waiting on responses from 2 others. I think it's going to be a tremendous 3 days of workshops and lectures and worship together. If you have other ideas about things you need or want or hope for from us that we can support you, please let me know. We're listening and trying to be as responsive as we can. We're also determined to make the best use of our campus as we possibly can. We've engaged a group Partners for Sacred Spaces that works often with congregations to help them think about how it is they are already an asset to the community that they are in and how they can reach out and develop more significant partnerships and bring people onto campus that both strengthens the sense of community and the liveliness in our outreach, but also creates reliable revenue streams. And we're in conversation with a variety of partners. You may have heard the news about the impending merger with Gettysburg. Just kidding. Figured, 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in, I better make sure you're listening. Just kidding. We are actually exploring more and more relationships with our sister seminary in Gettysburg through faculty exchange and sharing staff and coordinating our strategic planning and our DL program, and we're grateful for that partnership. We're also fairly along the way in conversations with Palmer Seminary. It used to be Eastern Baptist Seminary, about the possibility of them locating here on our campus. This is not a merger or acquisition, but we look forward to imagining some of the new programming we might be able to do together and to strengthen the possibility of training leaders, faithful leaders in the city of Philadelphia together. So in all those ways, we're hoping to continue the move toward health that's been made in the last couple of years, and it's critical to continue. If we are very successful in that, it will still be absolutely critical that we at least double the amount of our annual unrestricted giving. I don't think there's a seminary today that is fiscally viable that has not raised the level of support that they're receiving, not just from individuals, but from congregations, not just from alumni, I should say, but rather from individuals across our congregations who recognize the value of training leaders for the future of the church. Every congregation that I visit, I talk about this need, and what I'm always surprised by is that many just don't give seminary much of a thought. I guess in one way it makes sense. When you say, where did your pastor come from, they usually name the last church the pastor served. Where pastors come from originally, or other DCEs or organists or all those other people who are served in roster ministry. Once they think of it, it makes sense to them. Dentists come from dental school, lawyers come from law school, church leaders come from seminaries. That makes sense, but they assume that the seminary is funded by the national church, and they assume it's funded typically completely by the national church. And while that was true to varying degrees across the country a couple of generations ago, it's no longer true today. The national church funds our expenses at about 7%. The synods contribute another 7%. We simply cannot imagine charging tuition to make up the 85. So tuition probably brings about another quarter of the budget. The rest of that, if we are to be in a balanced budget, means that we need to reach out and develop the kind of partnerships with congregations and individuals that will help us steer our way forward. And our hope is that we continue to demonstrate ourselves as good partners and worthy of that support. Second concern that some folks identified was across the board, actually began with appreciation, tremendous appreciation for the ecumenical character and reach and commitment of this school in the city of Philadelphia, across the region, across traditions, and that was lifted up in every conversation I had. At the same time, at one time or another, someone would ask if that outreach has been done at the loss of the tending of our natural constituencies, our historic Lutheran constituencies. And I can say unequivocally that the tradition from which we came, the tradition of the confessions that we teach, is vitally important to us here, and that in my understanding of the Lutheran confessions, one cannot be Lutheran and not also be ecumenical. It is simply not an either-or choice. And if you have felt at times that you have been neglected by us, again, please let me know. We will only do what we can to make that right and continue to lift up the voice of the Reformation, which Martin Luther imagined not starting a new tradition, but reforming the church. And we are at our best when we are in conversation with the rest of the church, seeking how best to give vibrant witness to Christ's message and ministry. Two hopes, then, that came through also loud and clear. One was a desire to have the seminary provide more resources, to in fact come alongside. to recognize that we have a whole generation of leaders who are working hard, who are capable, who are faithful, and yet who are also keenly aware that the world has changed and is changing, and would like places to gather and support for conversation and learning and to think our way together. Because the truth is, I'll just say, I'm absolutely convinced of two things. One, nobody in this room, maybe nobody in this church right now, knows exactly how best to be church for this emerging generation in a changing world. I just don't think we know that, which means we're going to need to innovate and challenge each other and experiment and share what we're learning and share where we're failing and all of those things that it takes to be innovative. At the same time, the second thing I'm absolutely convinced of is that God has blessed the people in this room and this school and this church with sufficient grace and wisdom and experience to find a faithful way forward. We do not yet know the way, but we will find it together. So I am absolutely eager to again hear about how we best can support you through events here, by going out to your territories, through web support and others. We'll keep thinking and trying to be as creative as possible and to be a good resource and partner for you. The fourth thing, or the second hope that people announced was the desire that we take some risks, that we be innovative, that we be courageous, and that we challenge ourselves to think about how we educate leaders in a different way. And I just couldn't have been more delighted by that invitation, because I think it's the essential call, whether a congregation or a social ministry organization or a seminary, that we need to think differently, and precisely because we don't need to know the way to experiment. And the thing is, if you experiment, you will fail. And the most capable leaders and the most interesting companies today typically have signs up at different places, and you can look for these coming soon. Fail faster. Because we simply will not learn the way forward unless we make some mistakes. But as we make mistakes, we can learn. And so we'll be doing that here and talking about that, and I hope you also will share with us what you are learning, what worked, what didn't, where you're finding strength and nourishment and moving forward. When I think about the innovation, just a couple more things. I really am so excited about some of the things going on here already. The Maple program, interested for people who are interested in connecting their faith and their work, but perhaps not in a congregational setting. Master of Arts in Public Leadership continues to grow, gain traction, and we see our graduates playing interesting and exciting roles in a variety of positions all across the church. And then the MDiv Co-op, which, in case you haven't had a chance to hear, it's when students are studying here full-time, but also engaged in parish ministry, the same parish ministry for 3 years, half-time, and complete that work. It allows them to complete their degree in a shorter amount of time. It provides a highly contextual environment in which to do learning. In some ways, it's as if we are pulling a leaf from our history, because it used to be you would learn ministry in apprenticeships. That was true of all the professions. Abraham Lincoln did not go to law school. He read law. Doctors practiced medicine with other doctors. And so we are eager to have students in ministry context for that 3 years where they can build a long-term relationship. What's interesting is them to bring back what they're learning immediately. So that if I'm talking about preaching and I make a suggestion, it's not uncommon for that kind of student to be bold enough to say, yeah, I tried that. Didn't work. What have you got for me now, Los? And that kind of back and forth creates a really exciting environment in which to teach and in which to learn, and are looking forward to that going forward. Finally, the element of the co-op that's also helpful to know is that part of the agreement with the congregations is that they then pay the tuition of the student. And while we're only 3/4 of 1 year in, early indicators look like that will help our students control the amount of debt they take out into the parish significantly. So very excited about those innovations. I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to, because there's a lot of other things we want to do tonight, including blessing our food and sharing dinner together.